Hey, I'm Ryan Hanna, and this is my rough draft so far. This is not the final version, but this is just sort of like the proof of concept. And I just wanted to get some feedback before I turned in the final, like non-rough draft version. So, my topic for this video essay is Bitcoin, and specifically speculation and investment with Bitcoin. Before I go any further, I want to make it abundantly clear that I am not a financial advisor. I'm just an idiot on the internet. In the final version, I'm planning on having like a disclaimer text pop up there, but I'm not quite done with the editing yet. Anyways, so the point of this video is not to explain what Bitcoin is in great detail. There are already plenty of other good videos on that topic, whereas this video is more intended for people who already know what Bitcoin is and are considering the merits of whether or not to invest in Bitcoin. And since we're talking about Bitcoin, everybody thinks of this image a lot, or not everybody, but a lot of people do. And this is not Bitcoin. This is like a representation of Bitcoin, I guess, but that's not actually Bitcoin. Like, if you look at this question, like, what does Bitcoin look like? This is 100% accurate. Bitcoin looks like a line of ones and zeros on a computer screen because it has no physical form. It's entirely intangible. So even though I know I just said we're not going to talk too much about what Bitcoin is, but this is what Bitcoin is not. If anybody ever tries to sell you one of these, you're getting scammed. Unless you just want it as like a cool piece of art or like paperweight or whatever, I guess. And so I also wanted to talk a little bit about my investment philosophy on Bitcoin. And so when I first got into Bitcoin, I actually got into it because I was playing poker online, and for whatever reason, the Department of Justice decided that the citizens of the U.S. are not allowed to gamble in online casinos that don't have jurisdiction in the U.S. So I was trying to get my money out of the site to play some poker and hopefully make some money, and I was getting roadblocked. So I felt pretty powerless, and then I learned that the site I wanted to play poker on also accepted Bitcoin. So I was like, okay, well, I can just sort of circumvent the absurd regulations. Like, it doesn't make any sense that I could go gamble in an in-person casino, but I couldn't gamble online. Although obviously online it could be like a little bit sketchy or whatever. Like, I can kind of get it, but I still disagree with it. And hopefully you guys do too. But if you don't, then that's fair. But anyways, so Bitcoin, the reason it was valuable in that situation was it's permissionless. So and it's also borderless. So I could send it there without banks viewing it as an international transaction, and it was extremely useful. So I understood that day the utility of Bitcoin, and once I realized that, the value of it can go a lot higher than I thought. Like back at this time, whenever the story I just told was happening, and I was trying to play poker online, this was like a few years ago, back when Bitcoin was maybe like $3,000 to $5,000 a coin, which is like relatively late for the Bitcoin game. A lot of people have been in since it's like $1 or like $100 or 1,000 or like whatever. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. So that's the main utility of it. But the other utility of Bitcoin is that it functions as a store of value. So why should the average person want to invest in Bitcoin? For better or worse, Bitcoin functions more effectively as a store of value than as a cryptocurrency, in my opinion. And the main utility of owning and using Bitcoin is, I mean, obviously you can do permissionless payments, but the main utility outside of that is just you buy your portion of Bitcoin, and it's sort of like buying digital property or like a digital asset, and you just you lock that down, and you've sunk your money into it, and for better or worse, you just sort of ride with it. So I'm trying to like transition here. So now there are downsides to investing in Bitcoin as well, which I'm going to cover right here. So as you can see in the last year, if you put in money in Bitcoin, if you invested anything, like exactly like a year ago today, or let me refresh this to make sure it's accurate. It's even worse now. See, that's what I'm talking about. So if you put in money exactly 1 year ago, you'd be down 23.6%. This year to date, it's down 13.89%. 6 months down 32.96%. That's terrible. Terrible for an investment. That's horrible. You'd be better off holding your money in the bank versus this. So why am I advocating to invest in Bitcoin then, if it's looking like this? Oh, what is this? Oh, the last 5 years it's up over 3,000%. Now, personally, I also think like if you're gonna invest in the cryptocurrency space, like today, if your only goal is to generate profit, I don't necessarily think Bitcoin is the best at doing that because the price is already so high. Like the market capitalization has to move up massively. People have to they have to really like demand has to like massively outweigh the supply, and then like the bigger and bigger the market gets, the harder it is to move the market upwards. Whereas some of like the smaller like alternative cryptocurrencies right now, you have potential for higher downside because anytime like Bitcoin tends to go down a lot, those also inevitably get hammered even harder. But Bitcoin has the so that's sort of like that's the advantage of Bitcoin over those is that you would put money in Bitcoin, and if Bitcoin starts going down, at least you had your money in that instead of the other cryptocurrency. Obviously, if you knew it was going to go down, you wouldn't want to have your money in it at all, but the point is basically that like it's worth riding through all of this. Like this is awful. I mean, this is just terrible. That's how it goes. Like Bitcoin it's either like the best performing asset or it's the worst performing. But the years when it's the best, it's so good that it makes up for all of this historically. Now, interestingly enough, Bitcoin isn't even the highest earner over the last 5 years on this list. Some of these stocks here have gone like insane. This is just a site I'm using just to compare it. But the difference is like with the stocks, you have a lot of people say you have like the utility of owning the stock, but like realistically, the stock's price is not tied to like the profits generated unless you get like dividends. It's not like directly tied to like how profitable your company is or whatever like that at all. It's only tied to what speculators' emotions are, like what the investors' emotions are surrounding that stock price. That's why you can have stocks now where like there's companies that are technically unprofitable, but people are like very optimistic about them, like Tesla used to be, where like it technically wasn't showing a profit, but people were so hyped up about the idea that they got behind it. And that's sort of, I mean, that happens with like every market to some degree, but I don't know. This is in Bitcoin, it's sort of like it's almost like a cult. Like a lot of people, they get their money in it, and then they just want everybody else to buy it. And that's like where I differ. I think the alternative cryptocurrencies have potential for higher upside, but then also it's a double-edged sword. They have potential for higher downside. And that's sort of like what the theme of Bitcoin is that it is like a double-edged sword. And it's like it goes up the most when everything's doing great, and it goes down the most when everything's doing terrible. And one of the nice things about it is that it's relatively uncorrelated, or it used to be historically anyways. Now it's, from what I understand, it's trending closer and closer to being correlated with the S&P 500 index. So it was a good way to diversify in the past, and now you're still diversifying somewhat. Like it's definitely not like the same as investing in the S&P 500, obviously, but it is the correlation. It seems to be getting closer and closer. So now that I don't know, I sort of talked about like my philosophy behind it. So who could benefit from an investment in Bitcoin? say anybody and everybody who wants to hedge an inflating currency against a less rapidly inflating currency, like Bitcoin is still technically inflating right now until the last, like Bitcoin is mined, then it will be deflationary at that point, which means that no more coins will be minted. So the basic idea is like the dollars or like whatever other currency you have, if you're worried that the government's going to print more, which you should be because that's what they like to do historically, you to store that value, instead of keeping it in that currency, you'd keep it in something that's more scarce. So you'd put it in like, I mean, this doesn't just apply to like cryptos. This applies to like anything. Like you'd put it in like a house. You'd put it in stocks and bonds. You'd put it in some sort of like certificate of deposit in a bank. So you're trying to do something to get a return on investment to counter the inflation risk. And now that we've like covered like what the upsides are, what the downsides are, uh, I do want to take like a quick second and say what are the potential harms of investing in Bitcoin, because this does matter. So honestly, the potential harms of investing in Bitcoin are the same as investing in any other asset. Investors have the potential to sell their Bitcoin for less than they bought it for, so that's not good if you're trying to make money. Also, additionally, if speculators use any form of leverage in their trading, so like you can do things where you put down like 10% of the money and then you take like a long position on Bitcoin, so like you think it's going to like go up in price, and you have like 10x leverage, but then what happens is once the price goes down enough, you get margin called. And so then if you don't have enough like capital or cash in your account to make up for that, then you'll get liquidated. Like you automatically get sold out because wherever you're trading with understands that you don't have the funds to cover it, or at least not on hand. So they don't want to take the loss, so they just liquidate you out. So I'd never ever recommend using leverage in a trading account, like as it relates to Bitcoin. Like I never ever recommend that. But I will admit, as bad as the downside is of potentially actually losing all of your money, the upside, if you do use leverage, is you could get higher like returns, assuming that your investment went profitably. So like if you bought at the bottom and use leverage, that's great, but the odds of you like catching the bottom, even if you're like a very skilled trader, which almost no one is, yeah, it's next to impossible. Also, if you buy Bitcoin and leave it on an exchange, that exchange can get hacked. If you buy Bitcoin, I would recommend personally, like what's worked for me in the past is I've bought Bitcoin off an exchange. I've sent Bitcoin to like a personal wallet of mine, and then I haven't had to worry about it. So that way, like if the exchange gets hacked, okay, I mean that sucks still because I was using them before, like that would still kind of be bad, but at least they don't have like my coins on there. And there's a saying in crypto that goes, like the crypto community that goes like, not your keys, not your coins. So if you buy any type of cryptocurrency through like an exchange and it's still stored on that exchange, you do not technically own anything there. Until you get it off into like your own actual wallet, you do not own anything. And there's a lot of like risks with the wallets too. Like you could send it to like the wrong address or whatever, and then it's just gone. Like if you try to send it to like your own address and you like mistype in the address, it's gone. There's no like, no one can help you. It's gone. So that's terrible. There are some downsides. And I mean, I think that's about it. The biggest thing is it's like an investment in anything. Like you can get emotional, you can see it go down a lot, and for this particularly for Bitcoin, it can go down or any other crypto, they can just go down so much that it's understandable to like just be freaking out and trying to like liquidate, just trying to get out as fast as possible. But at the same time, the worst time to sell is when the price goes down. The best time to sell is when the price goes up. And you have to sort of master your emotions. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the rough draft. Obviously, I've had a few rough spots. I'm going to try to hammer those out. I'm not going to be doing it in like one take for the final, but I just wanted to have something down since I'm not done with editing like the way I wanted to have it done for the final yet. So, alright, thanks for listening, anybody who did, and hopefully you get some good feedback.